Have you ever thought of bringing a full-out army battle for your D&D campaign? It's tempting, isn't it? Well, easier said than done. Bringing the excitement of a climatic battle between armies is so hard to translate for D&D. Mass combat doesn't work in D&D, deal with it. And then came Dragonlance, a war-themed setting. And the coolest possible solution for that, in my point of view, Warriors of Krynn, a cooperative board game with 12 battle scenarios. Wait, you don't agree that Spelljammer is the worst D&D product released by Wizards? Do we have reason to believe, better saying, to fear, other D&D products may suffer from the awful choices made for Spelljammer? Well, yes and no. Hello and welcome to the Deep Dice Press. We are a bunch of friends on their 30s who have played D&D since our teen years and who love role-playing and storytelling. In a given day, it just so happened that we were all going through career transitions and thought, why not give a shot on developing D&D products? And that's how our indie D&D publisher was born. Small in size, but big in aspirations. Our purpose is to take our D&D adventures to the magical excitement and deep immersion we experience with the epic tales and narratives of humankind. If you think our number of followers does not reflect the quality of our content, take a swing on our subscription button. I'll let you roll with advantage. There, you hit the like, subscribe and bell buttons for 20 damage and get new videos with similar content as a reward. You can also roll a search for the links for our social media on the description down below. Today was an important day for D&D. After 20 years of wait, we could finally put our hands in a new Dragonlance book. The newest adventure for D&D not only brings back a beloved setting to the game, but also brings important innovations in the form of the board game tie-in Warriors of Krynn and the debut of digital bundles for 5e. They're not the only innovations for D&D books this year. The previous release, Spelljammer, also experimented with a different product design in the form of a gift set with 3 different books. That brings the question, are Spelljammer and Dragonlance the new normal for D&D? Are those new product formats to be repeated in the near future? I'm going to share with you not only my answers to these questions, but also the reasons why Dragonlance innovations succeed where Spelljammer failed. Let's start with the bad news of 2022. Spelljammer got an F on its reviews. What went wrong? We'll discuss the true reason why Spelljammer was released as a gift set and whether we should fear its awful format will be used in future D&D books. Then, I'll share with you the reasons why Dragonlance is just a start for D&D products add-ons. After all said and done, are the Dragonlance Deluxe Edition and its digital bundles worth your money? I think they also provide lots of hints to the future of D&D. So join us, won't you? Spelljammer got an F on its reviews. What went wrong? The terrible innovation on its product design is the reason for it to be considered the worst 5e book ever released. How do we know that? Well, there are 42 5th edition books released with over 1,000 reviews each in Amazon. 10 of them score 4.9. Other 24 score 4.8, which is also the average and the median scores. 5 of them score 4.7 and only 2 books score 4.6. And then, alone and way behind, there's a Spelljammer with a blunt 4.4. Its buyers have made it loud and clear, it's a bad product, or at least much worse than any other 5e book, and I cannot imagine that such a bad review have not impacted sales. Wait, you don't agree that Spelljammer is the worst D&D product released by Wizards? Tell us why on the comments below. Do we have reason to believe, better saying, to fear, other D&D products may suffer from the awful choices made for Spelljammer? Well, yes and no. Yes, because I believe the drivers behind such a product design are just too strong for Wizards not giving it at least another shot. And yes, a very strong candidate for that is Planescape, the only setting to be released in 2023. And no, because the reaction for that product was so strong, and by that I'm certainly not referring to mean tweets, that it makes a robust reason to believe adjustments will be made. Spelljammer was one of the most expected product release for 5e. After all, 3e barely mentioned the setting, and 4e gave it only a few pages within a supplement called The Plane Above, Secrets of the Astral Sea. The last true supplement for the setting had been released way back in '93. Veteran players would always speak of this adventurous and wacky setting, with spaceships and talking hippopotamus dressed in 19th century explorers' outfits. The anticipation was hyped, and even a vinyl soundtrack was released, Spelljams. You can find that in Spotify and whatnot. And even so, it was a total flop. What went wrong? That's easy to answer. It's an overpriced product, tagged 50% higher compared to other D&D products, regardless of which country you live in. You would think that for such a price, it would deliver more content, but it's quite the opposite. Its slim 192 pages is only more than the first 2 published 5e adventures and the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. That's over 20% less pages than the average 5e product. Well, that's a blunt math, and the customers gave as blunt a response to that. What exactly did Wizards try to do and why? In economics and business, there's a couple of terms for that. What they were trying to do was testing the customer's willingness to pay, or see what would happen with the price elasticity of the demand at a higher price point. Frankly, Wizards knew they would sell less products if they were to set it at a higher price. The real question was, would they make more money? Of course, if you were to tag a similar product to what we're used to with a 50% higher price, the reaction would be equivalent to barbarians storming the gate. So, how do you do that? How do you pull that trick? By changing the product design so it's not a direct comparison. You divide the same content in 3 books, you add a pretty damn screen, you put all of that on a bookcase. And I would guess all of that does increase the printing costs by some 50%. But let's be frank here. There's no way that's the most relevant cost of such a product. Costs of distribution and marketing are probably much higher than printing costs. And both those costs for Spelljammer had no reason to be exactly the same of any other D&D product. What Wizards tried to do was pulling a double backflip. They tried to sell fewer units for a much higher price, betting the endgame would be much higher revenues. And even if that didn't work, they bet they would profit more anyways, as the Spelljammer product margin was much higher because its cost relative to its price is much lower than other products. Bluntly, I think Wizards was testing the waters to see if they could sell D&D products for a much higher price. And given the terrible product review, it seems to me that they have drowned. Or at least it became clear they went too far. Obviously, it's not a matter only of page count, but the consequential lack of content of so few pages. For a first shot at the fantasy sci-fi subgenre, the books lack everything, from character backgrounds to spells, from locations, which are the heart of any setting, to ship-to-ship combat rules. This last one is hard to understand, given that Ghosts of Saltmarsh had already brought rules for naval combat. Last but not least, the Spelljammer adventure is too short for a published adventure and too long for the pages it steals from what could have been further setting development. I can't help to think that the whole product design was a gross mistake, and whoever pushed that idea inside the corporation must have gone through some awkward moments with its results. There are 2 other products that are just too similar for a price comparison with Spelljammer, and each of them with 3 books and a DM screen. The Core Rules gift set and the Expanded Rules gift set. Prices vary according to what country you're in, but the core rules book's gift set price is some 60% higher than Spelljammer, and you get 5 times, yes, you heard it, 5 freaking times as much content with its 992 pages. As for the expanded rules, its price is around twice as much as Spelljammer, and you still get 3 times and a third more content with its 640 pages. Wizards probably thought that customers would compare the full price of those similar products, which would position Spelljammer at a lower price point, and not take into account their immense difference in delivery of content. In hindsight, it's frankly laughable that someone inside Wizards would really believe they would get away with such a cheap pricing sleight of hand. Point is, there's no easier way of making money than pushing the price tag to the very limit. And that's too strong a drive for me to believe that Wizards will not try to do that again. So yes, I think it's not the last time we'll see a D&D product with such a format and its associated price tag. What makes me a bit optimistic about this new product format is that it doesn't take much to change its design from a lame pricing magic trick into an actually good product for D&D fans. Wanna see? Imagine it's 3 books for an 160-page campaign guide, an 120-page adventure, and a 60-page monster menagerie, totaling some 340 pages with the same content quality we've seen in recent settings. For that same Spelljammer price tag, would you buy it if you had the money? I myself wouldn't appreciate it if all products were like that, but for a product I wanted once a year, I would buy it with no complaints. So, let's hope that D&D fans have spoken where it hurts the most, Wizards' pockets, and that if this product format is used again, especially if we're talking about Planescape, that it delivers what we came to love in D&D. Outstanding content. Dragonlance is yet another D&D release with a different product design after the Spelljammer disaster. Unlike its predecessor, which tried to pull a severe price increase without delivering additional value, Dragonlance brings 2 innovations with a lot of potential: Warriors of Krynn, a tie-in board game, and the Digital Bundle. So, let's talk about why Dragonlance is just a start for D&D products add-ons, the upsides and downsides of those new product designs, and why, contrary to Spelljammer, those innovations get me excited for what else could come in the future. Have you ever thought of bringing a full-out army battle for your D&D campaign? It's tempting, isn't it? After all, we're talking about medieval fantasy, and wars and battles are a very compelling trope of this genre, isn't it? Think about the battle scenes of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, or the many other medieval movies we've watched. Or remember how fascinated you might have been as a kid reading about or seeing pictures and schematics about castle sieges and regiments of infantry, archers, and cavalry and the siege engines used on those battles. Well, easier said than done. Dungeons & Dragons created the role-playing games genre, and it was actually born from a miniature war game called Chainmail. And yet, bringing the excitement of a climatic battle between armies is so hard to translate for D&D. I think there are 2 reasons for that. First, mass combats may be a frustrating encounter for players. And second, there are no mass combat rules available. Why mass combats can turn out to be a disappointing game experience? Well, what players love the most is being able to take on heroic feats with their own characters, and the role of an individual is very limited on a battle. It's very hard to make the character's choices and deeds have a relevant impact on the large scale of an army battle. And seeing all that action taking place and their characters not being able to contribute for decisive action for its outcome may render on frustration for players. The second challenge are the lack of appropriate rules for mass combats. and the fact that homebrewing them is no easy task. I myself struggled with that on my last campaign. I was 100% positive some 5e book would have the rules for that. After some research, I was surprised to find there was none. I didn't give up and started looking for some unearthed arcana rules and bingo, mass combat rules. Great! As I knew the rules existed, I imagined the entire plot, thought who would be fighting on each side, where the battle would happen, and what were its goals. Now I just needed to understand and apply the mass combat rules. Except they sucked. They simply don't work. It's so easy for a battle unit to be overwhelmingly more powerful than another one. And building a war encounter that is meaningful to the story, that actually reflects the forces that I wanted to be amassed, and that is challenging and balanced, is near impossible with those rules. But I wouldn't give it up so easily. After looking through some homebrew rules on the internet and not finding anything to my satisfaction, I decided I would do it by myself. It took a very, very long time to create mass combat rules that worked, but I finally managed to pull them out. Each player would be responsible for 2 units of their army, and each unit would be commanded by relevant NPC allies to their characters. As for their own characters, they were a special forces unit with relevant tasks that could change the course of the battle. With that, we went back and forth between the clash of armies and the characters' actions, and we managed to have a blast during the game sessions we took for that. After the D&D team realized their mass combat rules didn't work, after all, it never came to publishing, they apparently had given up, as stated in the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. And I quote, "Since D&D is primarily a game about a small group of characters going on adventures alone, it can be difficult to simulate massive battles using D&D combat rules. Because of this, it's generally best to keep the characters away from mass battles." They would then go on. Find a significant location that the characters can either defend or conquer with minimal reinforcements, like in an overrun citadel. Then have the major battle proceed in waves that guide the characters from one cinematic encounter to another. In other words, mass combat doesn't work in D&D, deal with it. And then came Dragonlance, a war-themed setting. And the coolest possible solution for that, in my point of view, Warriors of Krynn, a cooperative board game with 12 battle scenarios, all of them tied to different moments of the adventure, each of them with their own terrain tiles arranged in such a way to have different and challenging battlefields. Even better, your character is also tied to the battle, with specific rules and effects for each of the 12 core character classes. And as they level up, they start to have more and more influence on the battle outcome. Is that a cash grab product? Absolutely not. Stephen Baker and Rob DeVoe, their designers, are award-winning board game designers. You don't like the zoom-out perspective of mass combats, or you don't like board games, or you don't want to spend your money buying Warriors of Krynn? Not a problem. The board game is optional, and the campaign runs just fine without it, with full focus on your party characters. You like the idea of homebrewing your own mass combats, but don't like playing published campaigns or don't like the Dragonlance setting? Not a problem. The game rules, battlefield tiles, and battle units can be easily used for your own homebrew campaign. The reason behind Wizards of the Coast developing a board game tie-in to the Dragonlance campaign is exactly the same reason for developing the Spelljammer 3-book design: making more money out of a single product launch. And that's not no small amount, as the target retail price for Warriors of Krynn alone is $80. So, why Spelljammer feels like it is a cash grab, and Dragonlance not? For two very simple reasons. One, Dragonlance is a modular product. You can decide whether you want to spend the additional $80 or not. Two, it delivers content, and for what it sounds, quite an experience. Dragonlance works because you can pay more money to get more value. Spelljammer fails because it makes you pay more for less value than we used to. I call that business as freaking usual. More than that, Dragonlance and its potential success opens up a great avenue for tying up every sort of modular experience to our D&D table. Board games, card games, riddles and puzzles, you name it. You don't like any of that? Don't worry. They're gonna be all modular and not required for you to have the same fun you've always had with your D&D adventures. That I very much like. Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen was released as the first digital bundle of 5e, allowing us to buy both a print and a D&D Beyond digital copy at once. There have been many reasons, and there will be even more in the future, for the D&D community to demand digital bundles, so this first release should be reason for celebration. But is it really? I have serious doubts concerning the real benefits of the Dragonlance Digital Bundle. D&D Beyond is an interesting tool used by many groups, and accessing the digital content of the books we're using to play may be very handy to keep our game sessions running smoothly. As with any digital book, the digital copy is much easier to browse for research and consultation, especially if you use the digital tools to prepare your sessions. Digital copies will become even more important in the future, with the launch of the 1D&D virtual tabletop in 2024. Wizards of the Coast is investing a lot on its VTT, as it really seems to be the future of play for those of us who play both online and offline. After all, D&D is using the Unreal Engine to build the most beautiful VTT ever seen. Once it's released, it will be a compelling reason for many players to use it even when playing face-to-face, instead of traditional maps and miniatures. A key piece of that roadmap was the acquisition of D&D Beyond by Wizards of the Coast in the beginning of this year, to use it as a platform to build around everything related to the D&D digital experience. Prior to that, D&D Beyond was an independent company who simply had the rights to publish digital versions of D&D content. Now that everything is under the Wizards umbrella, digital bundles became a possibility. There are two digital bundles to choose from in Dragonlance: the book bundle and the deluxe edition bundle, which includes the campaign book, the Warriors of Krynn board game, a DM screen, and the digital copy. If you bought any of those bundles during the pre-order period, you also got a 2-week early access to the digital copy before the product release. Sounds like a good deal, but what about the price? That's where things got much less interesting. The answers are different according to where you live in, but none of them is really great. A digital bundle sale is a much more complex operation than it may first appear, as it's fair to imagine that everything about this model is under test, and that many changes will happen in the future. First of all, it's a direct sales model, from Wizards straight to our homes. That is a very complex logistics. Nailing it down will certainly demand effort, and it certainly costs more than delivering to retailers. That also means that Wizards has started to compete directly with local game stores and with digital retailers. The former is certainly not great news for local game stores. As for the latter, it's something that we consumers will probably be very thankful in the future, given how much monopoly power digital retailers are amassing, and the consequences that could bring to prices in a few years. Speaking of prices, that's another hard challenge to get right on a bundle offer. How many additional digital sales do I make for print consumers for every $1 of discount I offer? How many additional print sales do I make to digital consumers? And how much money am I losing providing a discount for those who would buy print and digital products anyways? Does that result covers my increased costs with direct sales? The only way for Wizards to find the price point that maximizes this equation is testing different prices. And if you have to test different prices, better be conservative and not give that much of discount in your first trial, right? That's exactly what Wizards did. So don't get excited about the digital bundle deals. They're not great. On the other hand, it doesn't mean it might not get much better in future releases. If you live in continental Europe, the book bundle during pre-order was priced at around 65 euros, compared to the 70 euros of buying the items separately. So the bundle benefit was simply a 5 euros discount and the early 2-week access. Might be enough incentive for some people, but it certainly wouldn't be for me. The Deluxe Edition bundle is a far worse deal. It would cost around an additional 40 euros to buy the bundle. You heard it right. The bundle is 40 euros more expensive than buying the products separately. It would cost, because during most of the pre-order period, the bundle was unavailable and you would have to join a waiting list. So there's obviously no benefit there. If you live in the UK, at least there was no waiting list for the Deluxe Edition bundle, but you would still pay an additional £55 for buying the bundle, compared to buying the products separately. Is there a benefit? Well, yes, but not for a noble reason. Probably due to the global supply chain mess, the Deluxe Edition and the Warriors of Krynn board game will only be available in late February, early March in the UK and continental Europe. I understand that if you bought the bundle, you would get it delivered this beginning of December. So instead of paying £120 to only get the game in March, you'd be paying £175 to get it in early December. The costly benefit here clearly has nothing to do with a digital bundle at all. For UK residents, buying the book bundle, or the book and the digital copy, costs the same. So the benefit is really only the 2-week early access. But it gets worse. Contrary to continental Europe, and along the lines of the US, D&D print product prices drop after their release. Journeys to the Radiant Citadel, for instance, can be bought today for £30 in the UK, compared to the £41 you'd pay for the Dragonlance book during the pre-order period. So, if you're not in a hurry and would rather save yourself £10, you might as well buy the digital copy and wait for the print copy price to drop before buying. If you live in the US, the digital bundle's discount is much more attractive. The book bundle costs $60, a $15 discount compared to buying print and digital copy in separate. That's equivalent to a 50% discount on the digital copy cost. The Deluxe Edition bundle costs $155, which is a $20 or 67% discount on the cost of the digital copy. While this seems to be an attractive deal at first glance, once again, it's nothing particularly great. D&D product prices in the US drop almost immediately after its release. Spelljammer, that costs $70 during its pre-order period, can be bought now for $47. Other products cost around $30 or $15 cheaper than what you would pay for the Dragonlance book alone during pre-order. Once again, there's nothing of digital for this bundle. You're paying the same price for the bundle that you would pay if you were to buy it after its release. So what you're really acquiring is an early access, 2 weeks earlier for the digital content and release day for the book and board game. As you can see, regardless of the region, what you never get is a real price discount for buying the digital bundles. Sometimes you're simply paying the same price to get a 2-week early digital access. Sometimes you're actually paying much more, only so that you may get your hands into a product that in normal circumstances would have been globally released at once, and not with a 3-month delay. I'm really curious about what's going to happen with the digital bundle prices now that the pre-order period is over. I have no hopes that for a deal that will make any sense for the deluxe edition bundle in UK or continental Europe. The book bundle, however, may become an interesting deal for all regions if its price were to drop some $15 over the next days. If that happens, then it's a clear sign that Wizards is willing to create a strong incentive for D&D fans to have both the print and digital copy, and that a similar logic would apply for future product bundles. If nothing happens to the digital bundle prices, then there's no real digital bundle at all. It's only a cheap trick to surf on our fear of missing out and fish some additional dollars from our pockets in exchange of an early access. Don't forget all of that the next time you consider buying digital bundles or any new release during pre-order period. If those few bucks make a difference for you, just hold on tight for a few weeks. You will get a better deal in exchange for your patience. We talked about a lot of things, so let's try to wrap it up. The two most recent D&D releases, Dragonlance and Spelljammer, finally brought to 5e two classic settings that hadn't been visited for decades. Along with that, they brought three different product design innovations that we can expect to see again in future releases. The drivers behind those innovations for Wizards of the Coast are basically making more revenues and profits from each of their new releases, and they were implemented in very different ways. For us, the customers, the question, of course, is, are those innovations worth our additional money spent on those products? The answer vary widely. Spelljammer delivers less for more money, and the Dragonlance Digital Bundle does not deliver more than we used to. But the Warriors of Krynn is an exciting innovation that delivers more value if and only if you're willing to spend more money on it. Spelljammer is the most expensive D&D product released to date, excluding gift sets and special editions. Its product design innovation consists of 3 books and a DM screen instead of the single book that we used to. Unfortunately, that seems to be nothing else but an attempt by Wizards of the Coast to mask a much higher price point for less content. Despite the 3 books, what we end up getting is one of the least contents in the entire D&D product line. A very slim total of 192 pages, with much less content than we would expect from a campaign setting book. When we compare that to the other 3 book products we have, that is the 2 current gift sets, the comparison is stark. The core rules books deliver 3 times more content for every dollar spent, and the expanded rules books deliver 65 more content for every dollar spent. One would think the customers would hate such an innovation, and one would be correct. Despite the 30 years of waiting for the release of a new Spelljammer campaign setting, it got the worst review ever by D&D customers. A shameful 4.4 score out of 5 in Amazon, where the average for a D&D product is 4.8. No other D&D product had ever scored below 4.6 before. That's a very strong statement from the D&D community, and I think that it's going to be crucial for future installments for the same product design. And I'm looking at you, Planescape. I don't think it's a product design doomed to fail. Quite the contrary, I believe that if Wizards were to deliver around twice as much content for this price and format, customers wouldn't consider it overpriced. Let's hope the economics of that release has been disappointing enough for Wizards to adjust its format for something we would appreciate. Another product innovation was created considering the Dragonlance Adventure War theme, with an optional and modular add-on to the adventure book, Warriors of Krynn, a cooperative strategy board game that solves a long-standing problem of 5e. Its lack of mass combat rules. The board game provides 12 battle scenarios tied to the campaign book, including roles for each character class in the battle, terrain tiles, and army units that allow for the customization of your own battle scenarios for your homebrew campaigns. Contrary to Spelljammer, that has an overpriced product that delivers much less content than we're used to, Dragonlance delivers an optional add-on with lots of value, and I'm expecting great reviews for this product. More, it opens up the opportunity for many other future add-ons in the form of board games, card games, riddles, puzzles, and all sorts of other things that could help to make a campaign come more and more to life. I think it's a very promising and exciting release. The third innovation comes as a consequence of Wizards acquiring D&D Beyond in the beginning of this year, previously owned by a third-party provider. D&D Beyond will be the platform in which Dungeons & Dragons will build its digital game experience, including a gorgeous virtual tabletop developed with the Unreal Engine to be released with OneD&D in 2024. Digital bundles were a long-standing request from the D&D community, as many of us would like to have both the gorgeous print book and their digital content as a plugin for the digital tools some of us use. For Wizards, it's an opportunity for more sales, converting standalone print customers and digital customers into customers of both versions. It is also an opportunity to test a new direct sales channel, internalizing the revenue margins that would otherwise be captured by digital retails and local game stores. The digital bundle, however, is not very much up to its name, as there's no real discount on the bundle, at least during the pre-order period. We end up paying just as much as we would if we were to buy both standalone products, as long as we did that after the pre-order period. What you really get with the digital bundle offer is nothing more than a 2-week early access to the digital content and hopefully the delivery of the print book on the day of its release. While the digital bundle isn't that much exciting as it is, it clearly has some potential as long as its price goes down, either right now that the pre-order period is over or in future products releases. All in all, that's my takeaway from this year's products innovations. A cheap trick to grab our money in the form of Spelljammer, a modular add-on that delivers lots of value, as in Warriors of Krynn, and a Dragonlance Digital Bundle that still lacks true customers' benefits. If you're interested in the content of this video and would like to know more about it, click on the link on the description below to download for free our booklet, Make Our Character Matter. You can also find more related content in our social networks. All links are available in the description below. If you want to check out a module where we apply all concepts discussed in this channel, look out for our new campaign, The Kingdom of Cormyr, One Purple Raven, available next year. Clicking on the screen, you may find other videos on D&D products and more. If you think our content might be interesting for you, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell to receive notifications for new videos. This video makes part of our series on the future of Dungeons & Dragons. In this series, we will discuss everything that will shape the future of the game, including detailed analysis of OneD&D rules play testing and D&D upcoming product releases. And yet, the best way to shape the future of Dungeons & Dragons is sharing our feedback and impressions about what's being published. So be sure to share your reactions and perceptions in the comments down below. What did you love or hate about Dragonlance and Spelljammer? I'm sure your opinions will help us think along with many other people. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. We are the Deep Dice Press.